This is the Region 18 Summer Etude Dotzauer number 22 practice video. Before we get started with this, I want to go over a couple of the terms I'm going to use to kind of help clarify some of the shifts that happen in here. So the way that I label my shifts is that I have first position, which is where our first finger normally goes. What I call lower second, which is where you put first finger where your second finger normally goes. Upper second, which is where you put your first finger where your third finger would normally go. Lower third, which is where you put your first finger where your fourth finger would normally go. So on the D string, first position would be first finger on the E. Lower second would be first finger on F natural. Upper second would be first finger on F sharp. And lower third position would be first finger on G. So it's a good idea to, as a warm-up, to go through that using the Mississippi Sop bowing. The first finger on each of those positions. You can do this on each string, but I'd say definitely the D string and then the A string would be a good idea. We also have to play a little bit in half position in this one. So half position would be 1/2 step behind first position. So instead of your first finger on E on the D string, your first finger would be on D sharp. Another point of clarification regarding some of the terms they use for the bow. So at the very beginning of this, it says at the frog. And when I see at the frog, I'm just interpreting that to mean somewhere in the lower half. So you don't want to be playing it right here. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to be playing it right here, nor should you, because it's not going to sound that good right here. But I'd say somewhere beyond where your first finger lies on the bow, like this is kind of a good spot to have the at the frog bowing. And then when you get later in the etude, about halfway through on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line, last measure, you'll see that it then has the abbreviation PT. That means point or at the tip. And again, I don't think you necessarily need to play this at the tip. I think if you hear, because you're coming off of a slur, you can play this more in just the middle of the bow. So you're keeping things from the lower half to the middle throughout. So whenever it says frog, just think lower half, a little bit beyond the first finger. And when it says PT, that's going to be just sort of in the middle of the bow here. Okay, so we're going to go through this, and I'm going to stop every time that we have a shift to kind of guide you through where the shifts happen. So we're going to begin with third finger on the C string. Now here's our first shift. You're going to go into lower third position on the D string, and you're going to do a forward extension, which means your second, third, and fourth finger and your thumb are going to remain the same, but they're going to come forward so that we now have this space between our first finger and second finger. So beginning from that G, so now we're going to leave lower third, come back to first position. During this open A, we have our next shift. We're going to go into lower second position on the A string with an extension. During the open A, we're going to come back into first position. Now, with this section, I like to try to prepare my other fingers. When we're crossing strings here, it makes the string crossings a little bit easier. So while I'm playing the low D sharp, second finger on the C string, I'm going ahead and I'm putting my third finger down on F sharp on the D string. Again, I'm putting my fourth finger down on the D string while I'm playing my third finger on the C string. Now we have our next shift. Our first finger is going to go on to E on the C string, which means we are in upper second position. During the open G, come back into first position. Prepare your fingers. Prepare your finger. Now go back into half position for the D sharp on the D string. This next note, the D sharp, you'll travel into upper second position on the A string. On this F sharp, the last note of that line, you come back into first position. During the open Ds, travel into upper second position on the G string. Come back to first position for the Bs. Go into lower second position with an extension. Back to first position on the C natural. Now that we've reached this two-note slur, this is where the bow position will change to the middle of the bow. Here, I like to keep my first finger down the whole time until here. During the open A, shift back into half position. During the open D, come back into first position. During the open C, you'll go into a lower second position and then extend forward. During the open A, come back to first position. Now on this next slur, we're going to go back into the lower half. Extend your first finger backwards for the B flat. Extend your first finger back for the E flat. Now in your part, there's no fingering written on this G, but I think it works best if you go into lower second position and put a third finger on the G. So then there would be a 1 on the C and a fourth finger on the E flat. Then you'll come back into first position for that low A. During the open A, go into lower second position. Back to first position on the B flat. Extend backwards for the B flat on the A string. Shift into lower third position on the A string. So we have another slur. It's going to take you to the middle. Shift back into lower second position. Notice in this passage that I'm keeping all of my fingers down. Extend and go back into first position. Stay extended here for the B flat. Now this is maybe slightly awkward going into the last note. You'll have to go from this extended first finger on the A string to then a C sharp with your first finger on the G string to wrap everything up. I think the best thing to do is in your music is go through after you listen to the video and mark and label where all the different positions are and go through it slowly stopping before each position change and making sure that your hand is set up, whether it's lower second or lower third or upper second or half position or first position, make sure that your hand is comfortably in that position before you worry about speeding things up at all. With the style of bowing, once you're able to get it to dotted coordinate equals 50, focus mainly on keeping your bow hold nice and loose, and then that will mainly take care of the style of the bow stroke, which is going to be not legato, but a little bit bounce. Once you get to that speed, as long as you're staying loose right here, the bow will tend to bounce a little bit right here. It's not overly bounced and it's not overly smooth. That's a stylistic thing. In terms of speeding it up, I think the tried and true method of using the metronome is always a good idea. Take it at one speed. Once you can do it 5 to 10 times at that speed, then crank it up 5 until you can work up as fast as you can. Another good way to do this is to use rhythms with and without the metronome. So you would go, start with short, long. And then you can do the reverse. The nice thing about that is that it has your fingers move fast, but you're only having to move fast between 2 notes at a time rather than having to use more. I hope that helps, and good luck practicing.